Hey everyone, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory podcast. On this episode, we have Val from Michigan, and he had a few Bigfoot encounters and experiences that he wanted to share with all of us. Val was a former law enforcement investigator, so he's very meticulous about information and data. Val has researched missing people, and it's something that he has come across in his line of work. He's also contacted David Politis and shared information with him. So after his Bigfoot encounter, he became very intrigued by the subject and wanted to learn more. Val feels these creatures are dangerous and you can't trust them because they're not your friends and they're not something that you should be gifting. I think it's certainly something that you should be very cautious about. These creatures may try to befriend you, but you don't know their true intentions because they are extremely elusive, and sure, they don't trust people, but you don't know what they're fully capable of. And just because a little one is kind to you, maybe the adults will not show the same type of kindness. If you enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you have a Bigfoot encounter that you would like to share with me here on the show, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. All right, guys, with all that being said, let's dive into Val's Bigfoot encounter from the state of Michigan. All right, Val, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. How you doing, Miguel?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for asking. Val, you have some encounters and experiences and information to share from the state of Michigan, I believe. If you would, run me through those experiences.
Well, first of all, I would like to introduce myself and thank you again for the opportunity to share my information. I am a former law enforcement officer and former licensed private investigator. And in fact, I've spent my entire adult life doing that type of work. And so 25 and a half years of doing that kind of stuff, it tends to wear on you after a while. And so towards the end of my career, I volunteered to look for a missing individual out of Ohio, disappeared someplace between Florida and Texas. And I pick up the story when it comes to me, the information comes to me that the missing individual, and this all circles back to how I got into Bigfootery and where we're at today. So the information comes to me that the missing individual made a collect call to the mother in Ohio, an elderly mother, and she hadn't heard from her son in 30 to 31 years. And I felt it incumbent upon myself to do what I can, use my skills and experience to help bring closure to this family of this missing individual. I jumped into it only after I started receiving strange things happening to me. Working midnight shifts for 15 years is very, very stressful on a person's body. For man and animals alike, performance during the pre-dawn hours, such as what I did, between the hours of 2 a.m., say, and 6 a.m., physiologically, our circadian rhythm steps in, and it plays all kinds of weird things on your body. It's not good for your health, first of all. It causes sleepiness and hinders our abilities and readiness and situational awareness And you know, it causes everybody to be drowsily unvigilant at most times. So sleep at night was very, very restless. Um, on one occasion, I woke up and there was an Indian, a native Indian individual standing in my bedroom, and I thought it was a burglar. I thought it was a thief that broke into my house, dressed like that. And I was trying to get up and go to my closet and get my gun because this is an intruder. And I live outside Detroit, and things like that happen. But in any event, um, I felt as though I couldn't get up, but I think the eye to eye contact with this individual, whatever it was to make me feel as though they were surprised. First of all, they were surprised that I could see it. They could see me. I could see it. It was surprised and startled, and it let me know there. I see no lips moving, but it was in thought that it was not there to harm me. It was just passing through, and in my feeling at that moment was that just relax. I'm just passing through. I don't mean any harm. I'm surprised that you see me, and from that point on, I went back to sleep. Next morning, bright and sunny, nothing there. But I thought that was odd. That's the first time that's ever happened to me. And just to preface what I said, I'm a completely sober man. No drugs, no alcohol, none of that stuff. Completely sober. But I couldn't understand, why this happened. How did it happen? So I went to my partner, longtime partner on the streets, and confided in him and shared that with him. And he is of Ojibwa um, ancestry, and he was pretty profound in his response and stuff. But to follow that up, about a week later, I get a phone call out of nowhere by some friends that I hadn't heard from in quite a while, and they were asking me if I was working day shift the next day. And it just so happened, as coincidence is, and I don't believe in coincidences, it just so happened that I was working day shift. I think there was platoon shorts or something. They didn't have enough manpower, so they asked me if I would work, and I did. And the lady told me, some lady wants to meet you. Anytime when you're working like that, like I did, and a strange woman you don't know wants to meet you, it automatically raises red flags. Your antenna should go up immediately because you don't know if you're going to be accused of something, if this woman is crazy, or you don't know anything about her, but she wants to meet you. And I'm certain I've never met this woman before, but I went over and I was introduced to this woman, this middle-aged woman. She looked at me and excused herself from my friend that she wanted to talk in private with me. And from that point on, Miguel, she says, the first thing that she says is this: you're an old soul. You've been here many times before. And she says, do you want me to tell you how you died in your previous life? And I said, no. She says, do you get headaches? And I'm automatically thinking where she's going with this. And I said, the occasional sinus, this, that, and the other. She says, well, don't give me a long answer. Just give me a yes or no. We went on, and she says, I'm going to share something with you. And she says, I don't want you to take this wrong. I don't want you to take this as a threat. She says, you work alone at night a lot? I said, I do. She says, I see a red car round red taillights. I see you and I hear gunshots. And she says, I'm telling you to be careful. That's my message to you. She said some other things I'll keep private, I'll keep to myself. But she, at one point, she looked at me dead straight in the eyes. And she said, you're looking for somebody. I said, I am. She says, I don't see that person. She didn't say man. She didn't say woman. I don't see that person here on this plane right now. Doesn't mean that they're alive. Doesn't mean that they're dead. It just means that I don't see them. But she says, this is what I want to tell you. They know you're looking for them. They will let you know when they're ready to be found. And that was her message to me. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now, Miguel. I was pretty floored by what she said. This is a stranger. I don't know this woman. I never met her before. I'm certain I've never spoke with this woman before in my life. For her to come out and tell me stuff like this and other stuff that I'm not going to share, it absolutely had me puzzled. So I called the mother of this missing individual 3 o'clock in the morning, and prior to my presence on your show here, I explained to you the circadian rhythm and how it affects different people. It affects me the same way that it does, I'm sure, other people and animals even. But 3 o'clock in the morning, I call this woman, wake her up. She's an older woman, and she knew who I was. And I asked her, I said, tell me everything that you remember from that last phone call that you had with your son before he went missing. And she went through the whole spiel, and she cried and she wept on the phone. And I listened to her. And when she composed herself, I promised her I will look for her son. I'll bring him home to you. I'll find him and I'll bring him home to you. It took me 21 months. I used DNA, mitochondrial DNA samples. And 21 months later, I get a call. Let me back up a step. In order to do this, I was associated with a large intelligence, international intelligence group. And that's the kind of stuff I did. I taught law enforcement officers. I instructed them in two of Michigan's largest community colleges. And I did guest speaking around the Midwest. So people knew me. I was also featured as a SME. A SME is a subject matter expert in the kind of stuff that I did. I wrote a published article in the Middle Atlantic Great Lakes States Intelligence Organized Crime magazine. It went all over the East Coast. That's the kind of stuff I did. So I was featured on A&E History Channel on a expose documentary they did several years ago. So that's just to establish where I'm coming from in this. So I get into this investigation, and through my contacts through this intelligence association, I'm pointed to directions, and that's it. Here's some contacts. It's up to you to make these contacts. They should have some information for you. I made the contacts, and believe me, when you're an outsider and you go to another agency poking around looking for information, it's not easy, especially 30 years, And so in my travels, I contacted a crime reporter out of Houston Chronicle, and she shared a lot of information with me. Was very helpful in locating this individual. So this goes from this. What she had to share with me was that around the time that my missing person disappeared was also the same time frame that they were aware of at least 23 or 27 serial killers, all in that corridor, that I-10. I-10 runs from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. I think it's the only interstate in continental U.S. that runs from east to west coast. And during my investigation, I came upon hundreds of thousands of missing people, bodies, unidentified people. Around the same time, I was listening to this individual from California, David Pallades, Missing 411 author. And I contacted him by phone a couple times because of some of the stuff that I was coming up with, doing the research that I was doing for the work that I was doing. And we chit-chatted about that. In Canada, there was a huge number of feet found with shoes up near the British Columbia area. I think I was looking at something or somebody in Alberta, Canada. And all of this stuff, all of this gruesome stuff circles around the same thing. Anyways, so after I was notified 21 months later that, yes, I got a hit on the individual I'm looking for, I contact the medical examiner, and I contact the homicide investigators down in Texas, and we chit-chat. And from there, I got all the necessary information that I needed to affect his movement, the remains to be moved from Texas back to his native home in Ohio. And after his service in Ohio, the next day I decided, this was it for me. I was going to retire. And that's what I did. 25 and a half years on the job. I retired in good standing. And all of these changes in my life were, anybody that's been through that knows what I'm talking about. It's earth shattering. It's huge and monumental. It's a change in your life. So at that point, I had a lot of time, and I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do now? And I remembered talking to Pallades. I remember looking at these, with amusement, looking at these fish rat newspapers at the checkout counter at the grocery stores about Bigfoot, laughs and chuckles, giggles and laughs. And I never really paid much attention to it. I never really thought about Bigfoot. I mean, I had other things, more pressing things to think about. But with all this time, all this idle time on my hand, I decided that I would look into Bigfoot for myself and decide for myself whether this is true or whether it's a myth. And from that point, I started looking at the Monroe County monster incident that occurred back in 1965, August 1965, in that case, a mother and daughter, 16-year-old daughter and mother, driving on one of these dark country back roads, because back in 1965, that's how you learned how to teach your kids how to drive. Everybody knew it. The sheriff deputies knew it. Police knew it. And it didn't matter. It was an accepted practice back then. You take your kids out on these roads. That's how they learned how to drive. So the 16-year-old young lady is driving a car, and the mother's in a car. 1965. There's no air conditioning. It's summertime in Michigan in August. The summers are hot and humid. It's repressive. And the windows are rolled down. She's driving. It's at night. There's no street lights. It's dark. And out of the field comes a large, hairy, brown Sasquatch. She panics. The 16-year-old new driver panics, hits the brakes, stalls the car, and she screams, and mother screams. And the hairy individual grabs the young girl, slams her face against the doorpost, and walks off. Now these two ladies are left in hysterics out there in the darkness on a country road. They're not far. They're within a mile probably of her mother's house, her grandmother's house. And at that time, it caused a lot of hysterical neighbors to come out with forks and bats and knives and shotguns and stuff like that, because you don't mess with family people like that in close rural neighborhoods like that. Everybody comes out. Word spread. It caused hysterics. It was all over the newspapers, went around the world, and the rest is history. When I retire, I go back and I look at these reports, and I see a lot of problem, because I look at these reports not as a spectator, not as a general citizen, but from a police officer's perspective. I look at this, and I look at this with a jaundiced eye, and I see a lot of problems with the way that it was handled, the public mockery, ridicule, calling these witnesses victims, witnesses, liars, and stuff like that. So all of the stuff, I'm looking at this stuff, Miguel, and I see problems with it. But again, this is 1965. This is not 2024. So I can't contact an individual in Michigan who was a pretty well-known Bigfoot enthusiast, researcher. And I asked him, I introduced myself, and I asked him, can I go out with you when you do these hikes and stuff? And we did, and got to know each other quite well in a couple of years. And this is 2012 when I retired. In 2014, myself and this other individual who became my friend, we were out in Washtenaw County, Michigan, and it was very, very hot, very, very humid. July. It was July 19th, 2014. We went through a couple bottles of bug spray because the bugs were really, really bad. And we started going into this particular patch of woods at the Waterloo State Park in Washtenaw County. And when we got into that wooded area, a few times as we were walking through there, Bob had stopped me, and he said, "Val, is it raining outside?" I said, "No, it's not raining." He said, "There's something flickering through the leaves." Well, what it was, I believe what it was acorns. Something was throwing acorns, above the trees. They were flittering through the leaves. But we continued on, walking on our journey. We didn't really know where we were going. We're just walking through the woods, just making note of these different things. Then I noticed that the bugs and the flies were just crazy. I mean, bugs biting and flies biting. It was a mess. I was hot, sweaty, tired, hungry. And then the bugs, just unbelievable bugs. I've never seen anything like this before. I've never experienced anything like this before. Um, I've seen shootings, suicides, accidental deaths, plane crashes, murders, stabbings, but I've never seen anything like this, and I never felt like this before. We continue our walk through this particular area, and we hear large reports of tree cracks. I mean, loud. When it's in the woods, it echoes. It's like a gunshot. And Bob paused and stopped, and he asked. He said, "Val, did you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah." "What is it?" I said, "I don't know. It sounds like a big tree branch." It wasn't a twig. It wasn't a stick. It was a large branch. We continued on towards the direction of the sound, and we finally came upon a large, very, very large tree that had fallen. I don't know if that was what we heard, but it was a large tree. And on the other side of the tree, as I recall, there was a large, like a bramble bush with a tunnel in it. And looking back at this in hindsight, it was a Bigfoot nest. That's exactly what that was. It was dark inside. You couldn't see the end of it. And I know Bob had shimmied over the tree and was on his hands and knees trying to see if there was anything in it. And I know neither one of us carried a flashlight. But I stayed on the opposite side of the tree, and I felt these eyes on me. And through my previous training experience and some of the situational things that I've been been involved in, I can tell you that, and you can try this on your own sometime, or any of your listeners can try this. Go into a bar, a crowded bar, a restaurant, or even a movie theater, and stand there. Just walk in there and stand there and pick somebody out in that crowd. Pick somebody out in that crowd and stare at them. Just watch them and see if intuitively, if they don't turn around, and look you dead straight in the eyes. That's how powerful human beings are, and that's how powerful and effectual our intuitive feelings are. You can get a person to notice you and look at you just by looking at them. They feel it. You might see them scratch their neck. You might see them touch their back, but they'll turn around and they'll look at you. That's the feeling that I got when I was out there. I've been into many, many homes, many, many places like this. It works. It happens. So I notice that somebody is watching me, somebody's looking at me, and I did have a cheap camera, Kodak camera, 35 millimeter digital camera, and what I did was I loaded it up, I got it ready, and I just swung around and started snapping pictures in a 180-degree arc. And I seen this individual, this big individual, on the side of a tree. And it looked like he was either climbing up the tree or coming down the tree, but he was very large. And my first reaction when I seen this individual, he was the color of a Carhartt jacket, like a deer, almost a reddish brown color, and all hairy. His whole right side was revealed. I seen from the head all the way down to his calves. The face was sparsely. It had sparse hair on it, so I could see almost a pink, pallid complexion, sweaty, oily, shiny, kind of like I recall dead people looking. They get that plastic look about their face, like makeup and stuff. And that's what this individual's face looked like. I would say he or she was probably in the range of 8.5, 9 foot. Very hairy on the arms, the chest, the legs, the thigh, the ankle. Um, I look at this individual. It looks at me, eye to eye, and my first reaction was, "What the f? Are you kidding me already?" And that's when reality struck. That's, when reality strikes, when you see something like that, and your mind goes a million different places, at unbelievable speed. It's very hard to grasp. It's shocking. It is shocking, and that's something I'll never ever forget about that. The fact that you've seen what media and authorities mocked people about. This is a joke. This is a lie. This is a myth. The real myth is the deception that they put on all of us all these years, all these decades. That's the myth. That's the shocking reality of a Bigfoot Sasquatch encounter. And so I equate that feeling. For me, it was like, and I carried a weapon. I always do, and I know it seen it on my hip. The feeling was like it was these thoughts in my head. It was like somebody standing over your shoulder, rifling through your computer files. That's the feeling I got. Um, Very intrusive, very, very intrusive. I told Janice Carter one time, I says, my experience that I felt was as though those eyes were looking through my soul. And she said, "Well, Val, they're reading you." I says, "What do you mean reading me? What does that mean to me?" Well, as she explains, it means that they were looking to see what kind of person you are. Are you a good person? What your intentions are? Well, Miguel, I'll tell you, my intentions are this. Quite frankly, I'm a live and let live kind of person. I don't want to take any life. I don't hunt anymore. I don't fish anymore. Although I thoroughly enjoyed those two sports, I don't do that anymore. Um, um, it felt it felt as though it felt as though this thing was uh, I don't know. It just felt like it was asking questions, but it was confusing to me because I'm thinking all these things. It reminded me of a head-on car collision that I experienced several years ago, and the same thoughts, the same feelings in that moment in time during that head-on car collision. I found myself doing extraordinary um, physics calculations. I graduated from Central Michigan. I'm a reader. I love reading. Knowledge is power, and learning is everything. But mathematics wasn't my strong suit. Reading was, philosophy, literature, those were my strong suits. Speaking, that's my strong suit, not mathematics. But in that correlation that I'm making with the car accident, I found myself calculating the time, the distance, the space, and how I was going to survive this car crash, all in a split second. And sure enough, um, during that incident, everything went black, like your computer screen goes black. And at that point, I thought I was dead, but I sustained some pretty severe injuries during that thing, but I survived. But getting back to that Bigfoot encounter experience and stuff, that's the same kind of feeling that I had. I was doing all these calculations, these thoughts, I was thinking about how I felt. I felt fatigued, drained. I felt as though this individual was, whoever it was, whatever it was very, very powerful, and that it was sucking the energy right out of me. And for a moment, I thought about this is exactly what people talk about when they talk about infrasound, how these people go missing. This is exactly how it happens. They put people to sleep, and then who knows what else happens. But that's what I felt, and the only relief that I felt from that overwhelming sense of danger was my fleeting thought of free will. It's free will is a gift from God that's given to everybody that's born. The moment you're born, you're given that gift, free will. Miguel, I'm telling you, the moment that I thought of free will is the moment that I felt the cessation of that oppression that I felt. And I told my partner at that time, I says, we got to leave. We got to go now. And he might have wanted me to explain what the hurry was. I says, we got to leave. I'm not going to sit here and talk about this right now. We got to leave. I mean, right now. No talk. I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to leave now. And that's what we did. We got out of the tree line. We stepped into a large agricultural field. And at that point, we look down, we see a large foot impression. We measured it. I got photos of it, and it measured 17 and a half inches. 17 and a half inches multiplied by 6.5, you take the answer and divide that by 12 inches per foot, and that'll give you a pretty good estimate of how tall the individual was that left that track. And I'm going to tell you something, and I told Bob this when we were outside that tree lane on the way home. All I wanted to do at that point was I wanted Bob to drop me back off at my car. I wanted to go home. I've had enough. Let me think about what I just seen, and let me figure out whether or not I captured what I seen on photo. And so the first thing that I did when he dropped me off at the car, I didn't want to talk anything. I didn't want to talk about anything. I didn't want to talk to Bob. I just get me back to my car. That's all I want to do. He got me back to the car. I stopped at a McDonald's and got a cheeseburger. Out of all things, I had to get a cheeseburger, and I never understood why it was, after seeing something like that I had to have a cheeseburger. And then it dawned on me, you see, when a mother breastfeeds a child, it's a chemical in the dairy, or not the dairy, but the milk, that allows the child to calm down. It has a calming effect on that child. And so I surmise that it's probably something within the dairy of the cheese that I needed to calm down a little bit and think about what I just seen. I get home that night, probably 11 o'clock, 11:30. I'm more than 50 miles away from that state park. And the first thing I did was pop the memory card from the camera, plug it into the computer, and upload those photos. And oh my gosh, there it is. Exactly what I seen. I got on the phone. I called Bob. I said, "You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe what I got on this photo." So that was July 19th, 2014, almost exactly 2 years to the day that I retired, that this occurred. So at that point, I started looking at Bigfoot as a real um, a real individual to this day. And I research, I read, and to this day, I have the largest Michigan Bigfoot database in the state with 2,262 reports. And not only that, but I created 4 additional databases, Bigfoot databases from across the US and Canada. And it's, I sit back and I'll profile Sasquatch. I'll tell you the dates and the times, the paths that these creatures follow. And these creatures, from my understanding, from my learning, from my research, I'll tell you that Bigfoot Sasquatches, I don't call them sob, I don't call them wild, what do they call them? Some people call them wild men. Some people call them forest people. They're Bigfoot Sasquatches, period. They're not human. They're not primate. There's something in between, like an enigma. But they're very real, and there's lots of them. And so, in my journey, in my travels, I've done a lot of conferences, a lot of public speaking. I've done a lot of podcasts, and I'll tell you that these are creatures of habit. Long before you and me stood foot on this terra firma, this ground that we step on, Sasquatches walk the same ground. They know this ground. It's in their DNA. It's in their body. They know this area. So some people complain. Some people trolls and people that want to mock and make fun. They don't understand the Bigfoot Sasquatch history, but they want to mock, and they don't get it in their head that Bigfoot Sasquatches don't show up. Why don't they show up in inner cities? Why don't they show up in big cities? They do. You don't see them. They certainly do. And they make their presence known in a lot of suburban, well-developed communities. They do. And a lot of times they will follow these railroad tracks. They'll follow utility lines. These areas. They're linear thinkers. I'm a linear thinker. You have a problem, and you try to solve it. You try to find ways to solve it and stuff. Wolves are linear thinkers. They follow linear paths. That is why, if that is not true, how do we explain why Bigfoot Sasquatches like to follow interstates? Those are typically straight lines, and they'll parallel these major roadways. That is why a lot of motorists report Sasquatch crossings, whether it's expressways or roads. That's what they do. That's their nature. And they'll go to places that they're familiar with. You look at all these reports across the state, across the country. I don't care if it's Canada. I don't care if it's United States. I don't care if it's any other country in this world. If there's been a Bigfoot Sasquatch report someplace, somewhere out there, chances are, chances are very good that there's going to be other reports there, whether it's 6 months later, whether it's a year later, whether it's 2 years later, they'll be back. It's like it's like you explain that the same way that you explain how do birds and butterflies know when it's time to head down south, and how do they know to get back here when it's warmer weather. There's a lot of things to learn about this, but all of this stuff, Miguel, comes with its own hazards. I've received threats about this. Idiots, threaten to break my legs if I don't uh, share this and put this on social media and stuff like that. So somebody else can come along and write a book and make a profit on it. It's all about money. This is all a big industry to people. Um, but you know, four computers, um, four computers, three hard drives later, I can tell you, when you get into this stuff, it's costly. It's very costly, and that's what I got to say.
All right, Val, thank you very much for sharing your encounters and experiences and the research that you've done in the past. And I want to thank you for the work you did in law enforcement and putting your life on the line and taking the time to help other people out and, helping that woman find her son.
Well, Miguel, for me, um, a lot of what I did was um, self redemption. I'm we were born as perfect beings, but myself, I don't see myself as a perfect being. I see myself as an imperfect man in an imperfect world trying to do good for people. And I found it self-redeeming to help people like this, people that need help. You need to help people, and you need to be kind to people. Not everybody out there is the boogeyman, and not everybody out there is a bad person. And when I went about my ways to do what I do it with the sense of paying it forward. You plant that seed of goodness with people, and hopefully somewhere down the line they take that seed and they cultivate it, and they do some good for other people, and that's how you change things. That is how you change things. So before I leave here today, if you would allow me to just plug my group site where people can get in touch with me or talk to me, or even if they're from Michigan, they have some Michigan Bigfoot reports that they'd like to share. I can be found at Michigan Bigfoot Reports and Data, Gumshoe Guy's Corner. Gumshoe Guy is a word in police parlance. It means a private detective. Gumshoe Guy. Gumshoe Guy is the private investigator who years ago, before computers, before cell phones and pagers and everything else, um, this was the individual that had to go out and walk around and talk to people, knock on doors and talk to people. And his worth was measured by the gum stuck on the soles of his shoes. And that's where the name Gumshoe Guy comes from. So,
Okay. I appreciate
excuse
you
me.
for sharing that. Let's dive
Yes.
into your Bigfoot encounter, and I want to find out more details about what you seen and experienced. What did this creature look like? Can you describe the facial features, about how tall it was, and anything else you can think of?
This individual was about 9 foot tall, 9 foot tall, and it was on the side of a tree. And in the tree next to this individual was a second individual who was all blonde, blonde hair, blonde shaggy hair, and it seemed I could see it, but I couldn't capture it in the photo. It seemed like it was disinterested in me, disinterested in my partner down there, but it was looking off into another direction. It had red lips. So it was very hairy, blonde hair. The individual that I seen, that I had contact with, was very brown, brown haired, like deer fur. And the color, probably, I say the color was close to that of those work Carhartt coats and jackets and stuff. Same color, was almost a reddish color, brown reddish color. The face itself had very little hair. It looked more human than it looked animal, being that it had very, very sparse hair on the face, as I recall. And the legs, the ankles, the stomach, the arms, hairy, just as hairy as, as the chest and stuff. I mentioned that the face, I distinctly remember the face because it almost had a pink texture to it, like pink or white. If you see out here, anywhere out here, you see a red-haired person, they almost have a pink complexion. Not really a white complexion, but a pink complexion. And that's a red complexion. That's what I noticed about the Sasquatch. Very human in features, but the height was extraordinary for something that I've seen. You just don't see human beings that tall walking around, that hairy at that time of the season. Very, very hot, very humid. But at no time did I ever hear any vocals. There was no vocalizations to this. One other thing that I would add to this was the photos that I took. I only captured 2 photos. The photo went to the UK and came back to me with circled individuals on the ground, and they pointed out that there were at least 4 or 5 others on the ground all around us that I wasn't aware of, that I did not see. So we walked into a nest of at least 5 or 6 Sasquatches. We didn't even know it. I mean, to me, when I'm out there in the woods, I'm looking in the trees, I'm looking on the ground, I'm looking around. I mean, I understand my eyes, your eyes, everybody's eyes are like cameras. They're constantly taking pictures, but it's up to us to process what we see in that moment of blinking. And when I got that photo back from the UK, identifying these other individuals on the ground all around us, I understood where the confusion was that I mentioned earlier in this interview. And the confusion, I'll explain like this, is if you or me, and I live in the city, so sidewalks are right here, right in front of me. I see a lot of people. If I see a group of people, strangers, gathered on the sidewalk, and I approach them and I hang around with them in the middle of their group, naturally their response is going to be, "Who are you? Where'd you come from? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah." But for me, in that moment in time, July 19th, 2014, in that evening hour, it was as though I had all these voices talking at me, not with me, but at me at the same time, wanting to know who I was, what I was doing there, that sort of thing. And now with that photo that came back from the UK, pointing out these very clearly pointing out these other individuals, um, it makes sense to me. It you know it I understand where that was coming from, what it was. So uh, my only other addendum to that report is that I never knew before this. This was a state park in Michigan. There's state parks and national forests. Because of the world that we live in today, Miguel, I would say this, and this is from me. This is my opinion. This is me speaking. People think when they go out to these places, these state parks and these national forests, that they're anonymous and private and nobody knows them, nobody sees them. They might go out there and they might piss in the woods or whatever they do, trash up the place. There are surveillance cameras all around in the forest. Believe that. Believe it. When you walk into those places, you're told to put a pass on your vehicle. That's a reason. There's a reason for that. And you're under surveillance when you walk in. You think that that's remote? It's not. It's not that remote. You're under surveillance. You've got authority. There's authority in the woods, just like there's authority on the streets and the roads that you drive on. And you're being monitored all the time. You're being watched. So where am I going with this? If if you take a small part of what I'm talking about here today with you and internalize what I'm telling you, there's no way that anybody can tell you of authority that Bigfoot Sasquatches don't exist. They know they exist. They know they exist because they have cameras all over the place and they see it. Just like you and I would see it, they see it. And what they will not admit to you or anybody else is that they talk about it on different channels, radio channels, frequencies, and stuff that you and I can't hear. They see it. They know it. They know it's real, but they cannot talk about it. It's silent. So, I think one experience I had in this same state park that I had this encounter in, we were out hiking with a group, and we just happened to step out of the trailhead onto the road where our cars were parked, our trucks and stuff. And I happened to see a state vehicle, employees who had stopped their vehicle on the road. Got it. They were out of their vehicles and they were bent over writing down license plates. And I walked up behind them and I asked them, I says, did you find what you needed? Shamefully, they turned. They were embarrassed, and they said, yeah, they were told to come out whenever they seen vehicles out there in these state parks and forests and stuff to grab the license plates. They want to know who's out there. That happens. I've got reports. I've got reports of before the state went from monologue or analog to digital. There were witnesses that were listening to the police scanners, picking up the DNR people, chit chat back and forth, and the sheriffs, the different sheriff's departments and stuff around. And they would talk about, so and so seen a gray Sasquatch. Some lady reported a gray Sasquatch scared her. She seen it walking across the trailhead, carrying a deer on its shoulders. Oh yeah, the farmer over there on such and such road is fit to be tied. He wants DNR over there because he found 6 deer with their head torn off, stacked up, and he just swears that it's a poacher doing this kind of stuff. And he's upset. He wants to talk to somebody now. This is the kind of reports that I get, that we got before they switched from analog to digital. Digital is a little different now, a little harder to scan and monitor. There is a report in Upper Michigan of a family that had property between two adjoining sections of a national forest, almost like a cul-de-sac, if you can envision that. It was summer day. They were sitting on a picnic table. They had a friend over, and out of nowhere, they said they hear crashing grunts and stuff, thumping and heavy footfalls and stuff. They turn and look, and they see a large black Sasquatch running through the tree line across their lawn to the next tree line on the other side of their property into the woods, and away it runs, and they can hear the trees cracking and breaking as they go. Moments later, they reported that there was a large OD green unmarked helicopter in hot pursuit following this thing, so low that they said that they thought it was going to land on their garage. These are the kind of reports that I see.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So getting back to
Yeah.
your Bigfoot encounter, did you see the creatures prior to taking the photo? Like you witnessed it with your own eyes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And that's the reason why. That's what motivated me to snap the picture. But
Hmm.
I had to fiend myself as not seeing it. And then that's what motivated me to load the camera up, get it set and ready, and turn around quickly and do that 180-degree arc sweep and snap the pictures and stuff. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got it because you know they're so well adapted to standing behind trees and stuff. You'd never see them,
Yeah.
with everything else out there. But
What did
yeah,
the
it's
eyes look like?
just eye sockets. I couldn't tell you the color of the eyes. Just
Mhm.
you see the eye sockets and stuff. You see those two holes pointing at you. You know that they're looking at you,
Okay.
and I see them.
Were they
Um,
round? Were they black?
well, you see dark. You see the dark sockets
Hmm.
where the eyes are, but that's what I seen. Um, that's as close as I wanted to get to it because, like I said, um,
And how far
I
away
wasn't
did you say they were?
I would say about from where I was, I would say somewhere in the area of 30, 40, 50 feet.
Okay. And
It's
did you feel like you were in danger whenever you encountered them?
well, my first response was what the F, and then I tried to provoke it because I thought for a fleeting moment I thought it was somebody with a ghillie on or something, and I tried to provoke it and get a response and see a crack in this. I wanted to see it crack a smile or something. But what the F? Are you kidding me already? You freak, you is what I called it. I said, you freak, you freak. And it was just that deadpan stare, no emotion, nothing but these confusing thoughts and stuff. We're just beaming out there. So judging the size, judging my inexperience with something like that at the time. I didn't know what they were going to do, but I didn't want to see it come down off that tree. It was like I would say, Miguel, it was probably, if I had to guess, I would say it was probably 10, 13 feet off the ground on the side of that tree.
Okay, so it was in the tree
Oh yeah,
or up in the
yeah, it was
tree.
in the tree. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was coming down or going up, but there was another one up in a tree. So I am just deducing that it was coming down the tree. I don't know, but
Hmm.
I didn't know. But I'll tell you this: I walk away from that encounter with a little more respect uh, for that being, because as a chess player, I suck at poker. I play chess. I'm all about strategy, and for the fact that I was able to walk away from that encounter unmolested. You hear what I say? Unmolested, not attacked, not assaulted. Shows me a great deal of respect. Really, seriously. Uh, in my studies, in my research into um, the laws of war, the art of war, Zhenju, um, it, it's um, it's a reciprocal respect that one warrior has to another, and that is allowing that person to pass, allowing that person to leave without. And I'm talking about the weaker person, me. I'm the weaker person to leave unmolested, unharmed and stuff. So for me, in my mind, that shows respect, and I give respect when I get respect, and that's the way I look at this thing. Now, I've heard people say, "Oh, that was a piece of wood, and that was this, and that was that." Well, you're sitting in your basement, and you're looking at these things. You're looking at these pictures. I was there. You weren't there. You don't know what's in my heart. I know what's in my heart. I know what's in my thoughts. Um, until another person experiences that moment in time, um, it's very difficult for them to critique harshly. Now, on the other hand, I've read someplace where somebody said, "Well, I had 26 sightings." Well, my response to that is, I eat bologna sandwiches too, and I love bologna, and I know my bologna. Uh, but I had one bite of that apple, and I don't need another to tell you that that's a Sasquatch. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Do I want to see another one? Nah, not necessarily. No. But for anybody that hasn't seen one, that may see one, or that has seen one for the first time, I would say, have somebody with you. Have somebody with you, somebody that can support you and talk you through these things, because to see one for the first time like that, like I did, you go through a lot of changes, and reality hurts when it comes crashing down on you like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, it'll certainly change your life and your perspective on the things going on around you.
It does, and for that matter, when I told you that I had built 4 databases into this, I look at the good, the bad, the ugly about Sasquatch, and I'll tell you, quite frankly, I don't buy into I don't buy into this feeding Sasquatch blueberries and getting back rubs and laughs and giggles like that, because I see with my own eyes hundreds of thousands of reports, Miguel, hundreds of thousands of reports. I see what they've done to people. I've seen what they've done to pets. I've seen what they've done to livestock. And the deeper you get into this, uh, the more you get into thinking or even thinking about that these things, they're not human. They come from someplace else. I've read authors who write and theorize that these were beings from another planet. And while I get into that topic, I don't want to sound crazy here, but I hate to tell you, there are lots and lots and lots of reports of UFOs and Sasquatch together. I'm sorry. And I won't put that on my group site because I don't want the UFO community to take over and change the genre of my Facebook group site from Bigfoot. But there is a lot. There's a lot of confluence, connection, and connection to the UFOs, between a UFO and Sasquatch. There has to be something to it. When you got witnesses reporting seeing these crafts, some reporting seeing some reports say that they've seen these crafts low enough that they recognize a Sasquatch inside those objects, and they might say that they seen the unidentified whatever it was, and then they see Sasquatch. These aren't coincidences to me. There's no such thing as coincidence. No such thing as coincidence. Everything in this world, everything that we do, Miguel, is purposeful, is purpose-driven. We live in a purpose-driven world. Everything that we see, every contact that we make in our lifetime, there's a reason for it. We don't understand, we don't see it at that moment, but there's a reason for it. This is what a purpose-driven world is, and that's what it is. We talk about Bigfoots, and today I mentioned about the vast number of UFO connections with Bigfoot. That's not a coincidence. I'll admit that there is. I don't get into that, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that go on that you don't talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with that.
Not my specialty. It's not my interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there seems to be some type of correlation between Bigfoot, the paranormal, and aliens, UFOs. And yeah, Val, I think that pretty well covers your encounter story, and I really do appreciate you for being a guest on the channel. And
well, you're welcome, Miguel.
Yeah.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to me.
Yeah, and I encourage people to check out your website and to report their encounters into you and see where it goes from there.
Thank you very much, Miguel. I want to say that on my behalf, I listened to your podcast, your YouTube and stuff, and it was very well put together, very good, very professional. I was impressed by it, and I told you earlier in a private conversation that I do know who your previous guest was. I do know them. They're a good friend of mine. And when he mentioned my group site on your show, I had lots of people contacting me privately. Val, you were mentioned on this show. You got to listen to this. And so I went there and I listened, and I just wondered to myself, why didn't I see this before? I mean, I didn't know who you were. I might have heard your name or seen it someplace, but yeah, I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I did. It was very good. You have a very good show, and thank you very much, Miguel. It's been my pleasure to share what I've seen, what I know, what I feel, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and if you ever experience or encounter anything else, feel free to reach back out to me, and we can talk more about it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, you have an excellent day, and thank you so much for your time.
Be safe. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Val, thank you very much for sharing your Bigfoot encounter with me and taking the time to explain the experience with me. The photo that you shared was a little blurry, and I do have standards on the channel, and I'm really looking for some clear video footage and not so much pictures, unless the thing's just standing right there. But I believe you nonetheless, and I certainly believe that you encountered something in the woods. But yeah, the fact that you investigated missing people, I wonder if there's a connection between the missing people and the Bigfoot encounters. I'm sure David Paulides has talked to people, or excuse me, he has spoken with people in the past that have evidence of that. And I've seen some of his shows in the past, and it does seem like it, because people were hearing like wood knocks and strange sounds and the sounds of like metal banging in the woods prior to the person disappearing. So that does make me believe that this phenomenon is certainly connected with missing people. So thank you very much for your service in law enforcement and your interest in the Bigfoot subject. I hope your database works out well. And yeah, if you've had a Bigfoot encounter in Michigan or anywhere in North America, certainly feel free to contact me, and I'd love to hear about these experiences you had. But until the next one, thank you everyone for listening, and take care and be safe out there in the forest.